Enemy MOAB incoming.
Hey guys and girls, it's Kirsty here as usual, and today we're going to be talking about shotguns, looking at shotguns, techniques, all that good stuff, because everyone knows I love shotguns in this game. But before I go any further, I'm going to apologise for the sound of my voice. I am not feeling the best at the moment, sort of a little bit chesty and all, so I do apologise for, the nasally Australian accent that you're hearing at the moment. So let's actually get onto it. I figured that we could talk about, first of all, some class setups. I'm just going to be really brief though. When I run with shotguns, well, before we really go any further, let's just say I'm talking about pump action shotguns for the most part. I'm not a big fan of semi-automatics, strikers and the RSASS and things like that, although they're extremely good overpowered weapons, especially in this game. But we're going to talk about pump actions because they're my favourite, and I personally believe they take that bit more skill in order to use effectively, and most of these techniques are going to pretty much centre around pump actions, so that's why. When I use pump actions, the main sort of perks that I like to use would be extreme conditioning, assassin, and steady aim, although I do like stalker on certain shotguns. I know that sounds really strange, because at the end of the day, it is going to be better for people new to shotguns to just aim from the hip. But the more effective you get with them, the more fun with certain ones, like say the spaz for example. Stalker's just, it just works a treat anyway. And for a secondary weapon, there's pretty much two schools of thought on this. You can either go something like the MP9, which seems to work really like an SMG, or you can use something like a pistol, just to keep yourself covered in those times where you're going to get hit markers. Especially while you're ranking up shotguns, there will be quite a few hit markers, but at the end of the day, it really is worth it. So, you put in a little bit of time and these things really will pay off for you. But they are very different to other weapons in the game, so you do need to use them a little bit differently. But back to perk setup. There's a lot of trial and error involved with shotguns and what you personally prefer, but the specialist package is really tailored towards shotguns, probably more so than other guns in the game, so I really do suggest using that with shotguns, and then you really will become quite unstoppable. The damage proficiency is always going to be your best friend. Apart from sometimes with things like the AA12, range can be useful, but you will actually pick all the proficiencies up in the specialist bonus other than damage. So, as I always say, damage is always preferable. Whatever perks you decide to use while getting to your specialist bonus is pretty much going to be your choice. But I do say things like Dead Silence, Sit Rep, especially the Pro variant, especially when they're together, they're quite powerful. Even things like Hardline can be useful just to help you actually get to that specialist bonus. Because as I've said before, once you get to that specialist bonus, you are pretty much unstoppable, especially with a shotgun if you know how to use it, which is really the key. The main thing with pump action shotguns to keep in mind is you want to get one hit kills. Accuracy is very important. You can start out with something like a USAS if you're new to shotguns, just because it will make it easier for you to become more accurate, because you will have a chance to follow up that first shot with a second one, just in case you don't get the kill first time around. Whereas with something like the spaz or the model, you're not going to have so much of an opportunity to follow up with that second shot, unless you do quite a lot of manoeuvring and jump shotting, laying down and things like that, but we're going to get to that further on. So, one of the big questions I get asked all the time with shotguns is, do you want to aim down the sights, or do you want to fire from the hip? And there's a pretty simple answer, which I'm going to demonstrate with a little bit of a video, which I'm just going to throw in quite quickly. You'll actually see that when you fire with, say, a third perk of something like Stalker, which I demonstrate here, I fire at a wall and from the hip, and I've got quite a large bullet spread. Now I put on a class with steady aim. See the bullet spread and see how much smaller it is. There's a big difference. I'm not going to show too much of this footage because it is pretty boring, but I'm just going to tell you now that when you have steady aim, your bullets will actually be closer together than when you aim down the sight, as demonstrated on this lovely wall. So now we've gone into that, there are a few situations where aiming down sight can be useful. And that's more so those more long range kills. And it really is a personal choice. Certain guns I like to aim down the sight, and that's the Spaz 12 for example, and even the model 1887 in some situations. But it really is a personal preference because I've got MOABs with both these guns with complete hipfire. So you really need to give these things a go for yourself and see what you really like. Like I said, a lot of this really comes down to personal preference. Another thing that is really important but also personal preference is the sensitivity that you set your sticks at. Honestly, a lower sensitivity can be really helpful for a shotgun, especially if you're planning on firing from the hip. As we all know, when you aim down sight, you have quite a bit more control over where your sticks go, and the sensitivity is a bit slower, you know what I mean? But with a shotgun, if you're going to fire from the hip, this isn't going to be something you're going to worry about. You're more so going to want to be able to track targets, but be able to control what you're doing. So a low sensitivity is useful, but this really depends on what you personally like. Because me, I don't play on a low sensitivity, but it probably could be useful. It's just what you know though. Another really important thing to know when you're using shotguns is that they do work a little bit differently to most guns in the way that they actually shoot. Instead of shooting one bullet like most guns, they produce a collection of smaller projectiles called pellets. So these things have a tendency to spread out, and they can pretty much go anywhere within the crosshair on your screen. So just keep that in mind. So the best way when using a shotgun isn't to aim for the head, it's actually to aim for the largest part of the body, which is pretty much center mass, right around the chest. That's where you want your bullets to go. Because you shoot them in the knees, you're going to get a hit marker. You shoot them in the head, I know, as strange as it sounds, the bullets are going to spread and you're likely going to get a hit marker too. So just keep that in mind. But anyway guys, there's lots more stuff for the second part of this guide, and that will honestly be the most exciting part, and that'll be more things like movement techniques, using cover and things like that. But we're going to get onto that in the second part of this guide because I don't want to talk for too long. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this and it was informative, and I'll talk to you soon.